Today, I'm going to show you the GenAI card deck. It's here, as you can see on my deck, that you can use for two purposes. Okay. You can use them to teach GenAI fundamentals to your teams or to your clients. And also, you can use them to brainstorm ideas for use cases and then select the best use case with your client teams. So it's both a teaching tool and also a brainstorming tool. Um, Most of my Wednesday sessions, I sell them something like 7 or 8K. Maybe I've already sold something like 25K thanks to this card deck. I've sold that without any advertisement, without any even a web page for this kind of offerings. I think there is a lot of potential, a lot of need from our clients. So it's a deck of cards. The most fun one, it's this one. It's what I call the mat. So you see, it's a little card that I designed to be exactly the same size, and you can just put it on the side like that. So imagine you give a deck of cards to groups of 3 or 4 or 5 people, okay? And this represents the black box of an LLM, okay? And I use it as a way to teach what is an LLM, and I use it as a way to brainstorm. And in a large language model, you give it an input. So I don't know if you can see clearly, but you give it an input and then it does its magic and there is an output. So for example, you give it a prompt, you ask it to generate an image, and at the end, you've got an image. Okay. So I have different cards and I'm going to show you, first of all, I have input cards. So the idea is to teach people that there are different types of, and to teach them that modern LLM all about multimodalities. So you can, of course, you can put some text as an input, but you can also, for example, with GPT-4 and GPT-4 Vision, you can put an image as an input. And I have all sorts of cards with different kinds of inputs, which give them plenty of ideas of kind of thing that they can feed into the LLM. Okay. So let's say that I put some text. Then I have some output cards, which are essentially the same thing, but for the output. So the basic use case for an LLM is you give it some text and generate some text, but text can be a lot of things. And often what I do is I ask them to put some post-it notes. And for example, you can have a text as an input and a question as an output. Yes, Murray?
Yeah, I noticed that you had code as a separate input.
Yeah,
Why is code a distinct category from text?
that's a really good question. That was an hesitation when I designed the stuff, but I decided that it was significantly different to justify having its own card. That's one of the decisions I had to make. For example, I wanted to know if I had to make one card for text, for questions, for documents, for emails, that would have made too many cards. So this is why I've put written content like document, emails, so more examples as a description in the card.
Okay.
But I've decided that code was such a different use case for different people that it justified to have a card. But it's a really good question because I had I had the question myself.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, definitely an open question. We can remove it, we can add it, we can add more input card. But of course, the idea, if we want to make something usable, is to have the right level of detail and amount of cards. Yes, Curtis.
By the same token, maybe you considered this and tossed it out, but data, like uploading a comma separated file or some sort of data structure, JSON data, is that also in that category of, is it text? Is it something other than, you already got it. Okay. Great.
Yeah, because you're right, it can be text, but again, it's such a different use case that I thought that it was justifying a card.
Yeah.
But as the designer of the card deck, I had plenty of decisions like that to take. And I didn't tell you the story, but this is one of the crazy thing I always do. I had a client that the R&D team of a very loyal client that I have a lot. They asked me for a workshop on GenAI in 10 days.
Mhm.
And I could have done it the easy way using my slides from the different training I do for the AI Thinkers Club. But instead, I decided, okay, I'm going to do a card deck. So I created this card deck in less than 10 days. Okay. This is why I call it a prototype. But nevertheless, I've done it, by the way, with the help of AI. I've printed it, high quality, and now I've used it for free workshops, and it works very well.
It's interesting that we've hardly started and it's prompting questions already and making us think.
Yeah, yeah. And you're going to see the video. You're going to see the video of people moving the cards, pointing, discussing. And this is why the physical card deck is such a better idea than having a deck of slides on a video projector. Anyway, so you understand the principle. Now I wanted to have one of the important things that most people don't get is that on top of the natural behavior of an LLM, modern chatbot assistant, they have external capabilities. And this is this here. For example, the code sandbox is a way that, for example, if I put, let's take data, I put a CSV file and then I ask it to generate a chart. It can do it because it has a code sandbox where it creates some Python code on the fly, then use a chart library to draw a chart, and then it puts the chart in the output. So this is, for me, these cards are very important to explain some very powerful capabilities of modern LLM. You also have RAG, data retrieval, the ability to look on the file of the enterprise to get some custom knowledge. You have image generation, DALI. In fact, this is what enables to create the images, application and API, which in the brainstorming phase means that they can imagine connecting to all sorts of corporate applications and in order to generate something better. And of course, the web search that ChatGPT or Bing, they have search with Bing, Copilot has that, etc. So the capability cards are here. So I have some input. Either I use the natural and basic behavior of an LLM to generate the output, or I have to go through an external capability, get back something, and then generate the output. So as you see, it's both great to explain this stuff about the external capability. By the way, also have some slides that goes with that. But at the same time that I show the slide, they can move the card. Yes, Murray.
This is just an observation, really. It might be something to come back to later. But I noticed that when you were talking about the external capabilities, one of the examples that you gave was DALI, which is another AI. So it makes me think that maybe what the possibilities are for networks of AIs working together, all doing defined
Yeah,
functions.
definitely one card that I need to add is AI agent, which is the use case that you are describing. But
Right.
at the time I did it in December, this card deck. It was not the ability of ChatGPT. Now it is one. You can mention GPT, so AI agent GPTs. So definitely a new card to add.
Hmm.
By the way, I noted that a few days ago, and I had forgotten until you asked me the question. So thank you for asking the question.
Okay.
Okay, so this is capability. And the last one, just putting a little bit of order. The last one is, oh, it's not the last one. I have plenty of others. I don't know if you've read about my DREAM framework, DREAAM, which are for me the typical 6 use case where AI is really good. For example, the art of D is for diverge. Where is diverge? Yeah, D is for diverge. AI is really good at brainstorming seeds of ideas. The R is for reflect. So let's take that example. AI is really good as a coach to ask questions, for example. And there would be a typical use case where you feed the LLM with a document, a draft of an email for a client, for example, and you ask it to generate pros and questions so that I can reflect on my text and improve it. Just a coach would do. Are you sure that you have done this and that? So these dream cards are a way to explain to the participants what are some typical big categories of use case. So it's a way to, okay, reflect. Can we do with reflect in our activities, blah, blah, blah. So it can help them brainstorm in the brainstorming phase. And it also teaches them where AI is good in the teaching phase. Curtis?
Yes, thanks. I think you've got implicitly an architecture here. There's input, there's output, and then what is it? Capabilities? Is that what it says for the?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think this is what is emerging to be the standard LLM architecture. I think your card, this base mat makes sense. But my question is, can you imagine, we can all imagine how fast this is changing. There's another company, another iteration of Gemini or ChatGPT where you're going to need, in addition to capabilities, some other category of cards. Or do you think this is going to hold for a while? This architecture is it.
For LLMs, I think it's always going to be an LLM. It cannot be something else. It's the natural LLM. The basic LLM is from
Right.
input
In
to
and out.
output, and they are adding stuff to the LLM just by adding capabilities. In the near future, 2 years, I don't see something significantly different than that. And if there is, we can do a 1.1 version of this card deck. But I
Yeah.
think that for the moment, I'm going to
Yeah.
add more capability cards. One of the things that we're going to do a lot is adding new capabilities, but I don't think that the architecture is going to move. And this is essentially what I'm trying to teach, by the way, is for people to get this mental model and also to differentiate what is the basic and what's additional layers on top, which are these external capabilities.
I
Most
get you.
people
And
don't get that.
that's my instinct too. I think this is a really good, I think this will stick. But to go back to Murray's point, where he talked about the capability, the card that you need to put in is the called agent. Visually, I think you could chain them together so that an
Mhm.
input is an output. That output becomes an input of another agent. These things will chain together in a workflow. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, answered my
No, you just gave me the idea. I have never
There you
done
go.
that.
All right. Excellent.
But it shows at least that the card deck is flexible. Yeah, that's good. You could really explain how to chain prompt,
Right.
how to automate stuff also. By the way, automation, I think, I don't know, there's something that might be an angle that I do not cover the automation. So yeah, excellent point again. Um, Last cards, which they don't fit in the scheme, but I need them to explain some stuff when especially in the teaching phase, I need to explain I have the danger zones. So typically hallucinations. This is my preferred card, by the way. I love the emoji. So hallucination, sometimes I want to explain the context window. So these are cards that I don't give them initially, but sometimes I answer a question Because, for example, context window is a little bit too advanced. I don't explain it in a normal workshop, but I know that if I have to explain it to answer a question about how much content you can put in a prompt, I just take all my context window cards, put them on the table of the different participants at the same time that I explain it. So this way, the concept sticks because it's on the table and they won't forget it until the end of the workshop. And they're going to say, yeah, but if we put our document, it's too big, it's going to be over the context window, and they're going to have the conversation. So all these cards, I don't present them all, but I have them as backup depending on the kind of conversation. I like this one too. This is what I call poop AI. Um, Anthropomorphisms. This is dependence on AI. Okay, so these are the danger zones cards. And last one, which is more of a, a gift or a goodie, but I use them again. And it was really cool. At the beginning of my training, I always explain these different concepts. And by the way, if you've been to my last Tinker session about the fundamentals, there was a quiz where I asked to order these different terms from the widest to the narrowest. And it's a really cool activity to start. In group of 3 or 4, they have to reorder. So the right answer is that artificial intelligence is the widest, and then you have machine learning, and then you have deep learning, and then you have transformers, which is a specific architecture of neural networks. And most neural networks are equivalent to deep learning. So it's really cool because most of them don't know the difference between machine and deep
Alex,
learning. What do you think? Does it seem cool?
I love it.
yeah, I
That's
think
good.
it's great. I think it's a really visual way of understanding what are otherwise some quite abstract concepts.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Of course, if I do this session, is that my intuition is that uh, it's cool, but also I've seen it in action, so I know it works. Do you have the feeling that it could be useful to many other facilitators and trainers in 2024?
Yeah, for sure. Because people are going to have to understand, people need to understand how to use AI, but it's useful if they understand a bit about what's going on under the bonnet.
Mm.
It's a way of getting people to understand what the limitations are, what some of the risks are, and what it's actually doing, because it's a big mystery to most people.